Hello and welcome to this SIPPO Library video guide on export coaching. My name is Jeroen Kruft. I've made this guide specifically for BSOs to be able to strengthen the export capacities of your member companies. All of the information here is free of use. If used within a SIPPO project, please give credit to the author. And if used outside a SIPPO project, that's also okay. Then just please also reference SIPPO. What will we see in this video? Well, we'll look at the three main pillars for successful marketing. We'll pay attention particularly to exporters of natural ingredients, and we'll share many practical marketing tips. So the three main pillars of business can be summed up as supply, finance, and buyers. If you have all those three, the company has a good chance of being successful. Supply, obviously, the farmers, etc., how you get your ingredients to be able to eventually get to a export product. The finance to purchase that supply, but also to bridge that time gap for buyers to pay exporters for the products delivered. And buyers, obviously, are connected to suppliers in the sense that the buyers will determine what kind of product it is that they want. And so you'll need to adjust perhaps your supply to buyers' needs. These are the three main pillars. Let's look at them one after another. In terms of supply, first of all, define with your member company what it is they want to export. Also look at the legal requirements first and foremost. So, do they comply with the limits for maximum residue limits? Do they comply with the European Union deforestation regulation? In terms of the EU residue levels, for example, look particularly at mycotoxins. There are also legislation on metal, such as cadmium, plant toxics, processing contaminants like the PAHs, and persistent organic pollutants such as the pesticides and insecticides. We may think of glyphosate, chlorpyrifos. A good way to find out what to test for is to do a search. For example, if the exporter wants to export cacao, well, what kind of scandal has there been in Europe? We are seeing that there's been some salmonella outbreaks, so you want to make sure that particularly those issues are dealt with, because that's what they'll be looking at most. Chlorpyrifos has been something on the radar of the EU as well, and these maximum limits are being decreased every year. So you may have to take it to a laboratory to make sure you comply with these legal requirements. Now you want to be comparing also the products that the companies want to export with what's already out there on the market. So look at non-legal requirements like the appearance, the quality, certification that is associated with a product. So then you can ask a company to produce a first product specification sheet. And that would look something like this, where the company would list the HS code, but also what kind of certificates they have, how it is made, sensorial qualities, how it's packed, what kind of shelf life there would be. And the company needs to understand the supply chain. Sit down with the company and find out if they know where their farmers are, if they have that documented correctly, if they have sufficient of them, how the processing is done, do they have risk assessments in terms of their supply. If one supplier is no longer able to provide, let's say, ginger, then where would they get their raw materials? How are they doing on CSR, corporate social responsibility in the supply chain, an ever-increasing important thing for European importers. And finally, also look at the logistics. How are they transporting everything in that supply chain? You can also help your company to look at its internal structure. It needs to be solidly structured in terms of its staff, in terms of its board of supervisors, the checks and balances for the financial administration. So look into that and make sure that the company is strong enough internally before it starts exporting. Obviously, it needs to be price competitive. So do a cost price calculation together and find out if Europe is really the right market for that company. Perhaps it's too expensive to export. Look at the company's price with the going FOB prices in the country that you export from in terms of the competitors. Also, you may ask that company to contact some European buyers by email or just on the phone. That's the most efficient on price information. And they could give you a sort of a range in terms of the quality and the price and the certification that would give the company very valuable information before doing all that work to become an exporter and finding out that they are too expensive. Another way is to find out online what kind of products are there. You want to very easily look at, for example, some supermarket products that use your natural ingredients and then calculate back to the price that the company can export for. Using Google Maps, you can already identify where there are, for example, importers of the company's export product. For example, here we see some coffee importers in Belgium listed, and you could contact them and find out what kind of products they are sourcing. Typically, they would have a contract form, or you can also email them or call them and find out a great deal more in terms of their sourcing. This does require work, but as an exporter to be, you simply have to go through this to have a good idea. So as BSO, please support your company and please encourage them to do that reaching out before they know what it is exactly that they want to export in terms of their supply. Now, finally, the supply might need to be adjusted. You may need to also adjust costs of raw materials. Maybe the purchasing is done in an area that is too expensive. Maybe the processing needs to be looked at and needs to become more efficient so that the cost can come down. And perhaps logistics are too expensive, and instead of flying, you might need to look at containers. All of this hinges on finance, the second big pillar of successful export. Here, you want to evaluate the company's ability to finance operations internally. So what kind of money do they have already in the company to finance purchasing the supply and to invest in processing, packaging, and marketing? Also look at external finance. Can they access loans? Perhaps as a BSO, you could facilitate contact with banks and develop an export marketing plan. Elsewhere in the SIPPO library, there is information on how to write an export marketing plan with your company. Also, work capital, in other words, trade finance, is available with these social lenders such as Root Capital, Alterfin, etc. And there you could also inform your company how to access those loans. Now, in terms of buyers, and that's the third pillar we want to talk about, the first and foremost thing is to have a lot of information on clients. And so here, encourage your company to start a database, a client database through desk research or through the participation at trade fairs. Or you could also look at LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a great way to find more buyers and add them to the contact list. So here, for example, we have LinkedIn, and we've put in green coffee, done a search, and then we find some people here not yet connected to these people. Obviously, if you're starting, you're not yet connected to everybody. And here we can then connect, and then you can say, okay, I'm going to add a note. After I have looked at that person, I can write a little bit about myself, 200 characters, and send that to the person, ask them to become part of the network in the company. So this is a very great business tool that could be used by the company. Please, BSO, inform them about that and encourage them to use it. For BSOs, it's also very good to have a client database for buyer visits or for trade fairs. Talking of which, that is where you can really find a lot of great buyers. Physical presence is important when getting to know new contacts. The best trade fairs for food ingredients can be listed here. Those would be Cial. It's a great one for general food with or without certification, held in Paris. It's the sister trade fair of Anuga, which is held in Cologne, Keulen in Germany. The Biofach is every year in Nuremberg in February for organic food. And they also have Vivanes for cosmetics. For coffee particularly, I would recommend the World of Coffee, organized by the Specialty Coffee Association of Europe. Salon du Chocolat in Paris and Chocoa are good for cacao and chocolate. But also look at local fairs. For example, the Salon Cacao y Chocolate in Lima or AFCA for coffee in East Africa. At the trade fair, the company will need to do its elevator pitch, a quick sales pitch. And so as a BSO, you can really add value for your company to practice with them a good 1-minute pitch in which they highlight the specifics and the wonderful, unique selling points of their product. So when you're in Europe already because of a trade fair, it's highly recommended to set up also a selling mission somewhere around the area that the trade fair was taking place. So identify some buyers there and call them, mail them, and find out if you can schedule a visit to their offices, to their cupping stations, to really get a quiet conversation going between the companies and the buyers. Trade fairs are great, but people always have little time and it is a noisy environment. So by far the best way to do good business is to get them into the offices of their prospective buyers. Some other marketing tools that are important are this product specification sheet. We already talked about that during the pillar of supply. You may also need to urge companies to invest in a good camera, or at least maybe a photographer who has a good camera to come and shoot some good pictures for a few days with smiling people in high resolution. Here are some examples of the pictures that importers like to see. High resolution pictures taken by a good photographer. Other marketing tools are obviously to list the unique selling points, make them into good stories, and list those on the website. They can be done very cheaply, websites. On Wix, it's even free, and it looks quite good. So for your export company to convince the buyer to go with them as a supplier, their USPs really have to be sharpened. So look at the company's unique selling points. What is it that makes them special? Do they have great packaging? Are they great for the environment? Do they reduce CO2, for example? Or do they have reforestation programs? Or do they have organic certification? Or are they very socially engaged with fair trade certification? Do they involve women or youth? Or are they healthy in terms of their products being beneficial for people that consume them? All these things need to be analyzed by you, the BSO, and the company before putting it in the brochure or on the website. Here, for example, is chocolate that has been transported by sail ship, thus reducing CO2. Here is an example of ecological packaging where the chocolate has been wrapped in biodegradable wrappers. And here a company that really looks at the healthy aspect of the product. The raw chocolate allegedly has more antioxidants, and so they try to sell the product in that way. Now, in the communication with buyers, the marketing tool of email writing is still important. By and large, all European buyers still work with email. You want to be coaching your companies in the methodology of AIDA, where they construct their mail or their messaging in a way that first attracts attention, then get interest, then creating desire, and then always to end with a call to action. So please, what is it that you need? Can I come to your office? Can I send a sample? Shall we have a Zoom meeting? Those kinds of calls to action are important at the end of any email. So then, as a BSO, you can really help your companies to structure their marketing by planning campaigns. So sit with the companies and see when they can email companies? At what frequency would be good? Typically, an email, if you don't get any response, it's good to remind them every other week. So every 2 weeks, you could write an email to a company until they respond. Or even calling campaigns, who to call, or where to go for trade fairs. Typically, it's good practice to visit a trade fair, the same trade fair, for 3 years consecutively, so you have a chance to visit the companies that are there, to see the buyers that you met last year again, and to increase your network. An important part of export coaching would be the follow-up part. So after meeting at fairs, please urge your companies and try to monitor if they are following up with emails or phone calls or Zoom calls, and that they do that basically every quarter until really there is a solid lead with a buyer. Tell your companies also to keep the communication alive and fun, so if they can make a newsletter or they can be active on social media and that way have more engagement with their buyers, that would be great. And to keep everything alive and fun, please make your companies understand that buyers are just people. So have them make friends. To summarize the video, we've looked at the 3 main pillars for successful marketing: supply, finance, and buyers. And that is what supports basically export to Europe. And hopefully in the future, we can have this kind of graphic with a solar-powered boat shipping the export from your country to Europe. Related information is available in the SIPPO library, such as a company export readiness evaluation. It's a template and also written guide that you can use when visiting your companies. There is also a guide on how to write an export marketing plan, together with a template. Indeed, there are also 10 rules for successful marketing of finished products in Europe. This is a video that you can also access in the SIPPO library. In addition, there's a lot of information about market intelligence, knowledge exchange, networks, sustainability, and digitalization. Thanks very much for watching this video. Make use of all these resources, and good luck strengthening your companies in their export to Europe.